Welcome to Brett Breaks Things. Here on a Monday, it's wonderful to be back in the studio after a little bit of a weekend. Chilled out a little bit. Now we're back. And on Brett Breaks Things, I'm going to break some breaking news about breaking things. We're going to be talking about breaking things all day today. We're going to be talking about, explosions, crashes, the breaking of confidence from the Republicans. We're going to hear sound about the big, beautiful bill. We're going to get into that. And the breaking of my confidence in my Mets. I had a big mouth. I sat here behind this microphone and spouted about my Mets. And then we walked into the Bronx this weekend. 16 runs scored on us. We had been leading the MLB in ERA by a full point, our pitching staff. And we ran into reigning MVP of the AL and a bunch of corked bats. Not corked, they're torpedoes.
Oh, please. They're not corked, and there's only like 2 or 3 guys using the torpedo now.
We ran into the torpedoing New York Yankees. They took 2 out of 3 of us from us over the weekend. I feel it's only fair that I come out and just say I talked a lot about my Mets, and they didn't deliver for me this weekend. Now I got to stare this guy in the face through this window with his stupid Yankees hat
You can go ahead and show them. You can show them.
Yeah, he's wearing. Yeah, dude, he comes in.
There you go.
He comes in. Yeah, bro.
Let me stand up so you get the. Oh, what's this on the shorts too? What,
bro?
Oh.
I want you to keep that energy.
Oh, listen, Brett. I'm not an economist over here, but I mean, spending $50 million on a guy whose numbers aren't as impressive as somebody that's being paid, I don't know, like $5.5 million.
Just keep that energy, bub.
I'm just saying.
Keep that energy. You haven't been to Shea yet. Long season. Keep that energy.
Shea.
No. Citi Field. I'm sorry. I called Shea. I'm old. Citi Field. So yeah. The Yankees took 2 out of 3. Moving on. I wanted to open up with a bombing. Okay, there was a bombing in California. Over the weekend, the American Reproductive Centers in California was bombed. Thankfully, it was not a very successful bombing. I happen to think as the details come out, I happen to think something went wrong. Something was botched. 25-year-old guy, Edwards Bartkus, the only casualty in the bombing. And he would be dismayed to find out that none of the eggs, none of the essential materials to their business was damaged. None of the employees were killed. There were some injuries, but none of the employees were killed. Bartkus was killed. Guy Edward Bartkus. I defy any of you to write me, email me, call in, and tell me about a person named Guy that wasn't a D-bag. I've only known a couple guys in my day, and they've had D-bag tendencies. They gave me douche pimples a little bit. I feel like you're resigning your son to a particular life by naming him Guy. And by the way, speaking of Guy, I'm going to derail for a second. Guy Pearce, very talented actor. He was in The Brutalist, which I saw over the weekend. The Brutalist is an apt title for this film. Oscar nominated. Apt title for this film, but not for the character or anything that goes on in the narrative, but for how brutal the film itself was. 4 hours siphoned off my life. 4 hours siphoned off my life, and nothing happened. It was like somebody wrote a script. I'm going to write the most boring script I possibly can just so I can give Adrian Brody a chance to really show off his acting talent. Can Adrian Brody keep your attention for 4 hours with this completely boring, nondescript narrative? And they began it. I mean, the dude's already got a legendary schnoz. So what do? They hit the guy with a brick before filming. His nose is broken, crooked, and swollen throughout the entire film almost. His nose actually got a supporting actor nod. Didn't win. One of the better performances in the movie, his nose. Guy Pearce was good. I mentioned Guy Pearce. He was good. But, man, this film was brutal. Man rape, brutal. An intermission, which is the height of pretentiousness in a film, brutal. I look over at my wife at that intermission. She's in a coma. Brutal. She was in a literal coma halfway through this film. Brutal. Yeah, the performances were great, but geez, was this a boring ass movie? Moving on. Guy Edward Bartkus. So he had ammunition, a rifle. I feel like there was more to his plan. I feel like there was something, something else planned that he didn't get to, or maybe he backed out of. Um, we'll never know now. He did leave a manifesto. He did leave a manifesto. And in his manifesto, he detailed his ideology. He is a nihilist. Life is meaningless. Human existence has no inherent value. He's a pro-mortalism. Life is inherently filled with suffering. Death is morally killing, and death is morally good because life is all suffering, right? And childbirth is wrong. Bringing children into this life of suffering is wrong. Those are attended. I've met people like Guy. They were usually hanging out behind the gym at my high school smoking cigarettes, talking about how their parents don't get them and their teachers don't understand them. Or sometimes you'd be out drinking or coming home from a party or a movie or something, and you stop at Denny's at 3 a.m, and a gaggle of these particular people are huddled around, all in black, drinking black coffee, brooding over their place in the universe. I feel like bombing this clinic, it could have been avoided. It could have been avoided. But, we can get into, the dangers of social media, the dangers of, kids these days not interacting with each other. No social conformity in today's youth. Nobody to say, hey, maybe you shouldn't do that. Let's just go smoke some cigarettes behind the gym instead of bombing this reproductive clinic. But no, that is what happened. Guy Edward Bartkus, he did bomb just outside the clinic. Again, no casualties other than himself. I do find it interesting that bombings themselves have slowed or decreased over the last handful of years. I mean, there was a 2021 Buffalo, Minnesota bombing, blue state. There was a bombing in Colorado Springs, Colorado in 2015. That one cost the lives of 3 people. Colorado, a blue state. There was a 2022 bombing in California prior to this Palm Springs bombing. That one had no casualties, but again, California, blue state. I feel like, and it's just a feeling that since the Republican movement to pass on the lawmaking in terms of abortion to the states, that this stuff has slowed down a little bit. But of course, blue states are going to do what blue states are going to do, right? They're going to protect reproductive rights. They're going to protect the rights of young women wanting or needing abortion. They're going to protect those things in their states. So we should probably, I think it would be a little optimistic to think that these types of bombings would stop, especially if in these red states where these laws are being implemented, Texas, Louisiana, Georgia, Alabama, Florida, if it goes fairly seamlessly, right? If the protests quiet down and the laws get implemented and these reproductive rights are rolled back in these states and it kind of goes successfully, I would think the radicalism in terms of bombing these clinics would slow down as well. They're kind of getting what they want, right? But this one wasn't exactly tied to the reproductive rights from his own almost incoherent manifesto. He was a nihilist. He was an anti-natalist. His ideology was left of abortion rights for or against. It was left of that issue. But thank God nobody was hurt, other than the perpetrator. But, I mean, he had a ton of ammo in the car, a high-powered rifle. There were surrounding businesses attached to this business in that strip mall. And the fact that nobody else got hurt, man, is that really, really lucky. And again, I feel like I don't want, to turn the phrase, we dodged a bullet, but I think quite a few people in that strip mall, in that reproductive clinic, dodged bullets because there were bullets there to be shot. It's going to be interesting. I had almost forgot. It's so funny. These type of tragedies, they go to the forefront of the American, the pulse of America, what we're talking about, what we're worried about. And we hadn't had one in a little while. And I wonder what the effect of these Republican anti-abortion laws have on the lack of radical, violent activity like this.
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. You're back with Brett Breaks Things, because democracy doesn't defend itself.
I don't think he wants to go that way. Oh! 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 Oh!
Yeah. Oh. That was the Mexican naval training ship, the Cahutamec. It was on a goodwill tour around the United States and some other places in the world. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about broken things today. Oh my goodness, that's one of the things. That's brutal. And it's the people watching. They were like in awe of it. A couple people kind of like, oh man, a couple expletives here and there. A little bit of a comedic overtone to that, except two people did die. Two Mexican naval cadets, America Sanchez and Adal Maldonado Marcos. America was 20, Maldonado Marcos, he was 23. They did lose their lives. They were actually on the masts up there, and they lost their lives. And then a number of crewmen on the deck were also severely injured. A few of them critically injured. They are fighting for their lives. So not that funny. And Scott's already had to push me off making jokes about certain situations. He's protecting the brand, and I appreciate him very much. Those of you who know me personally, feel free to poke at what I was going to say coming into a couple of these segments, but I'm going to let it go. I see Scotty fidgeting over there, getting nervous. So I'm gonna move on. But that is actually really serious, and it's not the first time we've seen this recently. This one not nearly as serious as this particular incident. I know some of you might remember a similar boat crash into a bridge in Baltimore. Yeah. Yeah, you get the idea. 7 people died in that one. 7 people died in that one. That was really, and that one actually produced that really dramatic video of a couple guys that were on the bridge at the time getting saved. So it's unfortunate. I feel like these things are coming in duplicates. The plane crashes, although you can attribute that to lack of staff, lack of training, all of the DEI eliminations when the Trump administration came into power across the FAA. But now we have more transportation problems. That one, of course, a Mexican naval ship, but a bad trend, a dangerous trend. And if any countries were out there planning on a kamikaze style boat invasion to destroy our infrastructure, I would advise against it. It's not going well. The test results aren't going well on that. But more broken things. I want to talk about the big, beautiful bill, of course. Friday, it had a vote. They had the initial vote in Friday in the House Budget Committee, and that failed at the time. on Friday with notable Republican dissenters. Now, I just want to go over the bill real quick, the main sticking points, and I think that we are trying to set a precedent here at the show to take a full look at these things, because I don't think it serves the left to completely discount anything with nuance coming from the right. If you only hammer the points that serve your purpose at the time and discard other relevant facts that don't exactly fit in your narrative, you are doing your listeners a disservice, and you're doing yourself a disservice as far as credibility goes. So I am trying to bring facts to light on some of this stuff that may not be as comfortable. And there are things in this bill that I don't necessarily have a giant overarching problem with. Border security funding. $25 billion is in this big, beautiful bill for border security funding. Now, there's a caveat to that. They want to put that money towards completing the wall and more enhanced surveillance systems used by U.S. Border Patrol. I am so in on spending money to upgrade Border Patrol, border security. Why wouldn't we be using everything at our disposal to make border security more efficient, more successful, more be able to truly accomplish what you're trying to accomplish, leaving the culture war out of it? Drones, high-tech surveillance, better and more equipment for the border patrol. I'm all for that. I'm all for that. And a lot of that was in the border bill that Biden tried to pass in his third year of his administration. It failed. That bill could not pass because they had a majority in the House. And of course, the culture war being what it is, and bipartisan politics being completely dead and buried at this point, we're going to need Dr. Frankenstein to dig up some of its body parts and bolt the head back onto bipartisan politics, because it is dead. And it's been dead. But Biden tried to get some of this through. So now it's coming through in the big, beautiful bill, $25 billion for the wall and upgraded, enhanced border security. But if you want to finish the wall and you truly believe that that will go a long way in upgrading the security of our border and alleviating some of this political tension around the border by making it more successful in general, if that's what you truly believe, then do it. If it is a culture war boondoggle because you think your more fervent supporters in those border states will get their nips all hard over that particular piece of the bill, I'm not for it. You want to show me that actually completing this wall is going to help? Then show me. Fine. You've got the House and the Senate. You're the president. Do that then. Workforce and visa reforms. That's going to get highly political. Reforming the workforce visas and reforming the entire visa process and reforming the asylum process, I'm for that too. That was also in Biden's border package. That was one of the main sticking points of that package, was reforming the asylum process and the visa process. Child care and family incentives, more tax cuts for child care and family. I'm all for that. The middle class gets the shaft, regardless of the administration, regardless of the color of the administration, it seems, over the last 20 and 30 years. Let's help them out, fine. But they have massive cuts here. And that cuts to Elon and his billions and billions of dollars in subsidies to shoot his rockets all over space. No, cuts to environmental programs, cuts to federal education, cuts to foreign aid are in this bill. And of course, the main point of this bill, the only reason they're doing it, is the 2017 tax cut extension. And we're going to hear from some politicians on that. But all the rest of this stuff, that's fluff. That's noise, comparatively, to the effect of extending the Trump 2017 tax cuts will have on our deficit.
Breaking politics, breaking narratives, breaking news. But first, we need a coffee break.
All separate scrambles to save this.
Brett breaks things because someone has to.
Politics of this, simply put, are atrocious. You get 95% of Democrats opposed, 79% of independents, and you even get a majority of Republicans, 55% oppose major spending cuts to Medicaid. This, simply put, is not popular on any part of the aisle. When you get a majority of Republicans, a majority of independents, a majority of Democrats to agree on anything, you know that is where the American public stands. And on this particular issue, they stand very strongly opposing major spending cuts to Medicaid.
Yeah, so it's not popular. Okay, and that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about possible dissension in the Republican Party. Obviously, the right, the left, and Democrats oppose this, obviously. But, of course, they oppose everything this administration does, and 99% of the time it is absolutely justifiable. But Republicans, that's a large number of Republicans against this bill. Independents, they're right in step with the Democrats on this. But Republicans also oppose this bill. Now, obviously, the more zealous Republicans, they're going to toe the party line. Elise Stefanik, this is a bold, unapologetic leadership America voted for. It's definitely unapologetic. That is certainly true. He has been consistently unapologetic. And obviously on the left, the larger, more recognizable voices on the left, they oppose it. As I said, they oppose it. Ocasio-Cortez calling it greed wrapped in cruelty served to the side of fascism. That might be a little dramatic. Sprinkling in fascism on top of that. You can't just, make a point about this administration and then tack the word fascism on the end of it. Wait for the fascism portion to level it on them. Because there are. And I cannot wait to dive into the possible suspension of habeas corpus, the practical suspension of habeas corpus, flying those 3 plane full of immigrants out to El Salvador without seeing a judge, without having their day in court. That's actual fascism. And we will get to the actual fascism. So just take it easy, just a little bit, AOC. I love you. And of course, when Senator Rand Paul comes out against his beloved administration, we must remain fiscally responsible. Cutting taxes is great, but not if we're mortgaging our children's future. Hey, this is going to hurt. Rand Paul is right about this. How about that? Mark it on your calendar. Put a star on this show. Rand Paul is right. Crazy. And so in the House Budget Committee on Friday, there was a vote. It failed. And a few notable Republicans, they didn't just do the present, they voted no. Chip Roy, Ralph Norman, Andrew Clyde, and Josh Breachin all voted no in the House Budget Committee. We've actually got Chip Roy talking about it.
I have to now admonish my colleagues on this side of the aisle. This bill falls profoundly short. It does not do what we say it does with respect to deficits. The fact of the matter is, on the spending, what we're dealing with here on tax cuts and spending, a massive front-loaded deficit increase. We are writing checks we cannot cash, and our children are going to pay the price. So I am a no on this bill unless serious reforms are made today, tomorrow, Sunday. We're having conversations as we speak, but something needs to change, or you're not going to get my support.
Now, all you on the left who saw that, don't get too excited. Don't get too excited. Because what Chip Roy's actually upset about is that we aren't cutting enough into entitlements to pay for the tax cut that he is all about. He's all about the corporate tax rate coming down. He's all about the easing of taxation on the upper class, the millionaire and billionaire class. He's all about that. What he's upset about, or was at the time, is that we didn't dip enough into Medicare, Medicaid, SALT, SNAP. All 4 of these Republicans had grievances that were not against the spirit of the bill. Their grievances were against the particular way and rate in which we eased the hit to the deficit because of the tax rate on the corporate class. They're upset that we didn't cover our tracks enough and take enough away from the lower and middle class to pay for these tax cuts, and now it's obvious that they won't be paid for because he knows the truth, which is the Joint Committee on Taxation and the CBO both estimate $1.5 trillion to the deficit because of these tax cuts, including the $800 billion taken from Medicaid, including the $250 billion taken from SNAP, and other billions of dollars taken from essential government services that the lower and middle class utilize. Okay? We didn't do enough budget-wise to justify this gigantic tax cut for the corporate class. So they went and they re-voted and they tinkered. And it went back to the budget committee and passed. Last night, 17-16. And now that it's passed the budget committee, they expect this bill to hit the House floor by Memorial Day. Now, I have heard some on the right and the left theorize on how that vote's going to go. I know Carolyn Levitt is extremely proud of herself, proud of her administration. She can't wait to leap to the mic.
Just a quick follow-up. Is the president okay with this bill adding to the deficit?
This bill does not add to the deficit. In fact, according to the Council of Economic Advisors, this bill will save $1.6 trillion. And the president absolutely understands and hears the concerns of fiscal conservatives and of Americans who want to get our fiscal.
You know what? I'm going to cut that there. I'm going to come back in with it as well. But I just want she claims that this will cut $1.6 million from the deficit. That's what she's claiming. Well, we did a little bit of fact checking on that, and man, she loves to lie. And this is their brand. It's going to add 1.5 to the deficit, according to the Joint Taxation Committee and the CBO. They say it's going to add 1.5 over the next 10 years. So what does she do with this information? She runs to the nearest microphone she can to say a lie in direct opposition to the truth. It's going to cut $1.6 trillion. You heard the number $1.6 trillion, but it wasn't what you thought. It's going to cut it, not add it. And a lot of what Caroline Levitt says and a lot of what is said on Fox News, it's not for the rest of us. It's for the echo chamber. It's so MAGA can go to the water cooler, and when confronted with the truth or with actual numbers concerning this bill, they have the ammunition to fight. You're telling me it's going to cost us $1.6 trillion? No. I know it's going to save us $1.6 trillion. You got that wrong. You got the number right, but you got the effect wrong. Well, I've got these numbers from the CBO, Mr. MAGA. I've got these numbers from the CBO telling exactly where the money's going to come from, how it's going to come short of paying for the tax cuts, and how it's going to cost us $1.5 trillion. Where'd you get those numbers? The CBO? Never heard of it. I did my own research. Where? Don't worry about it. Until you can prove right here at this water cooler that your facts are more factual than my facts, I don't believe you. You are wrong, America. I can be as wrong and as loud about it as I want.
We'll be back to break it all down. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. Breaking news, breaking rules, breaking through. Back to Brett Breaks Things.
Simply put, besides all of the other important issues involved in this bill, this is the overarching truth. It is the biggest tax cuts for billionaires in American history, paid for by throwing 13.7 million Americans off their health care coverage. Now, those aren't my claims. That is not subjective. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office just this week confirmed that at least 13,700,000 Americans will lose their health care if the GOP bill for billionaires becomes law. That is bad economics. It is unconscionable. Even conservative Republican Senator Josh Hawley called it morally wrong. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Josh Hawley is right.
Josh Hawley is right. That was Brendan Boyle. He's a House member out of Philly, Democrat. And, of course, he's highlighting what everybody on the left is highlighting, which is you're extending the tax cut for the billionaire class. You're widening the wealth gap, the wealth inequality gap in this country once again. And this time you are paying for it with the untouchable things of Medicare, Medicaid. And, you know, that is going to be the drum that they bang. And why not? Not only is it true, but it's exactly what their constituents want to hear. Brendan Boyle doing himself favors. They're getting vocal about it. But he mentions Josh Hawley. Now, he said he couldn't believe Josh Hawley. He couldn't believe Josh Hawley was right. What he didn't know is Josh Hawley recently took a trip to Oz, and the wizard gave him a heart. That wasn't in the press, but he had been given a heart from the wizard. So all of a sudden, he's the moral compass for the Republicans. I do actually want to read you real brief the comments of Josh Hawley. It was an op-ed Josh Hawley had written concerning the big beautiful bill, and he's kind of pushing back from the corporate Republican group in the Republican Party. They call it the Wall Street wing. It's how they're referred to. The corporate Republicans are all about this bill. Obviously, they're the main proponents of this bill. They are the more zealous followers of Trump, and why not? He has been extremely profitable for them and their campaign donors. So this is what Josh Hawley said. This wing of the party wants Republicans to build our big, beautiful bill around slashing health insurance for working poor. But that argument is both morally wrong and politically suicidal. All jokes aside, I do not trust Josh Hawley on right and wrong. I don't want to hear much from Josh Hawley on morality, to be honest with you. But the political suicide part, the truth leaked out, didn't it? The truth is leaking out. He's a senator from Missouri. He represents Missouri, and his constituents are certainly affected by a bill like this. He went on to describe how 21% of Missourians are currently on Medicaid, and he went on in this op-ed to describe the story of a 8-year-old girl who's on feeding tubes, and she will possibly die without her Medicaid assistance, and she is in line to have hers cut. Certainly, you know, a jarring story, and I'm not going to, assuming he's not lying, that is extremely sad, and it speaks straight to the heart of Republicans in red Midwestern states who are really pretty nervous about this particular piece of legislation because it will hurt their reelection chances. But they know that if they speak out to this level, they're going to be hurting their chances anyway because they will get primaried. And the Republican budget, the Republican coffers will be spent on primarying these people if they speak out. So damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you're a Republican representing the poor, you know, the poorer of Americans in their states who depend on Medicare, Medicaid, SNAP, Social Security, these things. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Damned if you do speak up against this administration and this bill because you will incur the wrath of Trump. Damned if you don't speak out against this bill because you will incur the wrath of the voters on Election Day. But I mentioned Carolyn Levitt doesn't see it that way. Carolyn Levitt is all about this. She's very proud. She's very proud of this bill. She can't wait to shout it from the rooftops how awesome this bill is.
Just a quick follow-up. Is the president okay with this bill adding to the deficit?
This bill does not add to the deficit. In fact, according to the Council of Economic Advisors, this bill will save $1.6 trillion. And the president absolutely understands and hears the concerns of fiscal conservatives and of Americans who want to get our fiscal house in order. That's what the intention of this bill is. There's $1.6 trillion worth of savings in this bill. That's the largest savings for any legislation that has ever passed Capitol Hill in our nation's history. The next bill that even comes close was $800 billion. That's less than half of the savings that we see in the One Big Beautiful Bill. And so the goal of this bill is to produce economic growth, to cut taxes, and to get our fiscal house in order. And this is the right step in the right direction towards doing that.
Yeah, it's a step in the direction to get our fiscal house in order according to the billionaires. And she invoked the CEA, the Council of Economic Advisors. Well, let's just have a little bit of context on who that is. Okay? That is a partisan economic council appointed by the administration to oversee the monetary facts, the economic facts that will affect these bills. They are to overview how this will affect the country economically, how it will affect the deficit, how it affects taxation, how it affects Americans, and the outcomes of these types of economic policy. The CEA is partisan, and in the past, they have always had favorable projections of all Trump's policies. They have had favorable projections of the first Chinese trade war. They were wrong. They had favorable projections on the current trade war. They were wrong. They had favorable projections on the corporate tax rate last time in 2017. They were wrong. Of course, she's going to invoke them because that's her committee. That's Trump's committee. That's the echo chamber we're speaking about. But when you go to the JCT, the Joint Committee of Taxation, or the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, those entities are non-partisan, not bipartisan, okay? Not bickering from both sides, jabbing and a give and take and a tit for tat. No, they are non-partisan. No dog in the fight, okay? And according to their calculations, it will add $1.6 trillion to our deficit. And, you know, the false hope given to us by the four Republicans who voted no in the Budget Committee, again, don't be fooled. Don't be fooled. Chip Roy wanted more slashed from Medicaid, Medicare, okay? Ralph Norman, he wanted to tighten the welfare eligibility. That's what he didn't like about this bill. The Republican out of South Carolina, he wanted tougher restrictions on who was able to access Medicare and Medicaid and SNAP. He wanted it tougher to get these things. You know, Republican Andrew Clyde out of Georgia, he wanted more corporate socialism. He wanted to increase the SALT deduction cap. Every time you look at all the way down the line, these four guys, they wanted less access, less money, less availability for these entitlements than the bill already afforded. Their beef wasn't that it's going to add to the deficit. Their beef was that it wasn't going to take enough away from your grandmother's Medicaid to pay for the corporate tax rate. And Johnson went and he said, we tinkered and made minor adjustments, minor concessions. And these guys all got on board. All four of them got on board. So don't get excited. This wasn't exactly the dissension in the Republican Party that we really were looking for. I think if you want to look to that, look to Hawley and his comments in the op-ed. That's a little bit more telling. That's a senator who is normally staunchly in defense of this president and his administration and his policies. And to write an op-ed like that, a lot like Mitch McConnell, I do feel it will put a target on his back. I do have to be careful with the violent rhetoric and target on his back. I got to be careful because people are getting shot at these days, and that is not the America we want. But this isn't quite the dissension you think it is, and this will get to the House. and we'll talk about its chances in the House going forward.
They'll try to repair the narrative, but Brett Breaks Things will be back tomorrow to break it all down.